This has been 6 years in the making, people. I'm so nervous, guys. You have no idea. I hope this works out, but until then, 6 years has led to this very moment. I went to South by Southwest this year in Austin, Texas. What started simply as a dream ended up becoming a week I will never forget. It did not feel real as I was packing my bags, traveling to the airport, and taking 2 connecting flights. I was really doing this. All I could do is just sit down and reminisce about this. How did I get here to this very moment? We're gonna talk about high school again, aren't we? I kinda hated my time there. Days just blended into each other as I was taking classes every single day and learning about things I absolutely hated. It just felt like there was limits to everything in life. That despite the fact I had a filmmaking dream that was just growing at this time, I felt like I could do nothing with it. But that all changed when I went to the Toronto International Film Festival in 2017. It was the first time I felt so connected to my dream and loved by people who validated it. TIFF was more than watching movies. It gave me community. And when I returned to school, I realized things would never be the same. I was even more frustrated by the days blending into each other. I was frustrated by the boring classes, how I did not fit in, and how limiting it all was. I knew I had to follow my gut and make my dreams happen or die trying. The thing is, TIFF was only once a year, so I started researching on other film festivals, and I took a lot away from them. Cannes and Sundance looked amazing, but one stood above all, and it was South by Southwest. Films like 21 Jump Street, Baby Driver, and Furious 7 play the audiences that legend says is unlike anything you've ever seen. You do not need a suit or to be of a certain status. It looked very welcoming regardless of who you are. I knew in this moment that I had to go to this film festival no matter what. The thing is, years had to go by before it became possible. I wasn't exactly trusted to travel alone back in high school, and by the time college came along, a global pandemic kind of paused everything. It was not until 2022 where getting out of my comfort zone was a defining moment that led me to start traveling alone for the first time. And late last year, South by Southwest came back into my mind and a light bulb hit. This was a time to act upon what 17-year-old Hussein dreamed of, go out and meet more people, and expand my filmmaking circle further. So on January 1st, after weeks of running through my mind, I was ready to set the mood for a year that would truly send a message of real change. I'm going South by Southwest. I'm going South by Southwest! This was actually happening and I couldn't believe it. But oddly enough, the doubt and fears I had going to South by Southwest hit after I bought the ticket, and especially here on the plane. None of my friends were able to come, and what started as me against the world feeling quickly turned to a realization that I'm doing this alone with no one to help me. The only thing that carried me is a feeling that this could turn out better than I could ever expect. And I carry that sentiment as I travel across the country. And as I landed in Austin and arrived at my Airbnb, I noticed my host made a welcome sign for me, and that made me feel really welcome. And I went to bed feeling optimistic no matter the odds that were ahead. It just started off with me being super excited about the day and the fact that I was finally here. And after lining up for 30 minutes, I received a badge that let me do anything and everything I wanted to do in Austin. I started by walking around the streets of Austin and just exploring it, hanging out in all the pop-up venues and just taking this all in. But what I was really doing here was killing time before my first real event. So flash forward a few hours later, in which I attended the Creator Economy panel with none other than Colin Samir, who are legends in the YouTube space. There's a lot I learned from how valuable it is to create something that's unique to you and how to create community from there, something I strive to do with this channel. The panel was cool and all, but that wasn't what I remembered most. As I was walking into the event, I noticed that there was a girl trying to take pictures of herself, so I asked if she needed help. After doing so, I asked for some pictures in return, and without planning on it, we spontaneously went into a conversation and I was blown away. Her name is Lilia, who is a content creator in New Zealand who makes travel content, and we talk a lot about how we make videos and so much more. I felt the momentum going and I didn't want to stop there. I then went to my first South by Southwest movie, which was for Dungeons and Dragons, a movie I had little expectations for, and I ended up really enjoying it. But in general, my experience of watching all the films throughout South by Southwest was everything I dreamed of being and more. The audience of people who go to film festivals is one of the main reasons I fell in love with TIFF, and South by Southwest lived up to my wildest expectations. Theaters like the Paramount felt historic to me, a theater where films of South by Southwest past have had their premieres at. But no theater experience will ever beat going to the secret screening, which ended up being John Wick Chapter 4. I have never heard a celebrity get more of a pop in my entire life than Keanu did over here. And this extended the film as there was roaring applause throughout the entire movie. It was nothing I've ever seen before. Now, my first two events were really exciting, but there was one more for the night that I knew was my ticket to meet more people. There was an opening night film and TV party, which was something I knew I had to do no matter what. Now, the party itself was kind of mid. It felt like more of a fancy get-together than anything. But that did not matter as much as the people I met that night. There were some amazing people I met who really invited me in and helped me through my nerves. There was a few other people I met that night, but there was this one group of people I really bonded with, and one person in that group suggested that we just go outside and walk the streets of Austin, and we went along with it. And for the rest of the night, we walked through 6th Street, or as the locals refer to, the Dirty Six. But that was just a crazy adventure for us, as we really just walked around, talked about our stories, and now I had a bunch of friends I did not know before. It ended my first day here in Austin in such an incredible way, and the best part was, it was only beginning. And with day 2, it was time to apply these lessons elsewhere. There was a Muslim house event where people in the industry went to talk about Middle Easterns in film, and as someone whose name screams Middle Eastern, I felt obligated to go. You had the writer of Miss Marvel and Moon Knight talk all about his experiences breaking into the industry, and the director of a film I was excited to see at South by Southwest, Mustache, was there to talk about his film and his story behind making it. But more than the talks was how my curiosity led me to a crazy lesson. An older individual sat beside me, and I could have just ignored him, but decided to talk to him as I had nothing to lose. He then tells me how he's a writer and how he's in the industry, and when I told him that I was excited for Mustache, he said, "Oh, I actually worked in that movie." So then this whole other conversation began, but as the conversation was ending, another individual sat beside the writer, and I thought nothing of it. But then the writer looks at me, and then he says, "This is Imran, the director of Mustache." Words cannot express how much this meant to me. Imran was nothing but nice to me and really gave me great advice about the industry. I was so energized for the rest of the day that I went by in a blur. I watched 2 episodes of I'm a Virgo, I watched Bottoms, and I watched it with friends I made earlier that day. These last 2 days of the festival have been nothing short of incredible, and I thought the entire festival was gonna be like this. But life has a way of surprising you, because if I'm being honest, the next day was far from perfect. Day 3 began rather normally. I rode an electric scooter around the city, and I saw a full-on staged John Wick protest, which admittedly was funny. But I noticed something very different as I arrived in the city. I was really tired and not 100% energized to socialize, but I felt like I had to ignore it. Now, I can't say it was all bad. I got to see Eric Andre perform in a comedy show where he showed 2 episodes of his latest season. That was a good refresher for me, and I felt like here in this moment, I can make up for lost time, and what followed was the worst stretch of the film festival for me. I was in line for a movie called Hypnotic, which first of all was not good. It was really boring and not worth skipping Talk to Me, which I could have seen instead. I just got suckered into seeing a new Robert Rodriguez movie that was a work in progress screen that ended up coming out 2 months later. Like, that sucked. But forget the film for a moment. When I joined the line, I again felt every fiber of my being not wanting to socialize with anyone. And then when I was inside the Paramount, I told myself to at least try to socialize with somebody who's sitting beside you. Well, I talked to the person beside me and it went nowhere. And what should have been a basic rejection just felt like a punch to the gut. Look, the reason why I'm saying this is because as amazing as it is to travel and do a lot of things yourself, you're not going to be immune to feelings of loneliness. Nobody ever told me this is a thing about traveling and that it's okay to feel this. You just need time to recharge. Because at the end of the day, this just ended up being a temporary feeling and one that is normal to have. I learned here to let go of the expected and just go where the unexpected leads me to. So I had 2 more days of the film festival and I decided to go into those last 2 days with that mindset exactly. It begins rather intense as I packed in with 4 films a day. That was the day I saw John Wick Chapter 4, which, as I mentioned before, was one of the best theater experiences I've ever had. But it was also the day I saw Mustache, and biased aside from being the director, I really love this film. It was ultra relatable, and it's something you guys really need to see whenever it comes out. What really mattered here was the adventure of seeing the movies and talking to people around me, and applying the unexpected mindset I had. And going in with that mindset ended up being perfect. It didn't just make my last day at South by Southwest the best I had in the entire festival, but I ended up finding the answers to the questions I was seeking out 6 years ago. It started rather calmly. I saw a movie, but what I remember even more is the person beside me I had a conversation with. That was one recurring thought I kept having throughout the festival. How you never know who you're talking to until you do so. You never know what their status is or even what their story is about. You never know until you talk to them, and I was constantly blown away by that. But nothing else in South by Southwest surprised me more than this. I had nothing concrete planned, so I looked at the South by Southwest app app, and I noticed that there was a happy hour set up, and I decided to go. And I had no real game plan, so I was gonna do what I usually do at college house parties. Just walk up and introduce myself. No one really turned me away and rather welcomed me in. But the craziest part was this. As I was walking around, I heard a voice that was faintly familiar, and I wanted to ignore it, but then he said the words TIFF, and I stopped everything I was doing. It was Peter Kapowski, the Midnight Madness programmer at TIFF. He is someone who hyped up the crowd and someone who is a legend in my eyes. He could not have been nicer to me. He actually welcomed the fact that I was from Toronto. He told me I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do and to keep going. And that was a special moment, being welcomed in open arms by someone you look up to. And all I could think about was one thing. It was about 17-year-old Hussein and how much his dreams led me to have one of the best weeks of my entire life. South by Southwest was such a welcoming film festival for someone new to the game, and I loved so much about it. I love the sights of downtown Austin, I love the variety of the food, and I love the movies I saw and the audience that interacts with them. Now, all that alone would have blown me away 6 years ago, but I found the very answers to life I was searching for back then. The answer to life's greatest possibilities are just the ones that are outside of our comfort zone. That life opens up in ways you could have never known when you let go of the expected and be open to people and experiences. And I think I came out of it a better person. Someone who's ready to let go of the expected, be more curious about people, and live an exponential life. It may have taken me 6 years to find these answers, but I'm so happy to have made my younger self proud for living the life that he wanted to live. And I invite all of you to take the same chance.